My name is Emily Parker. I'm 26 years old, and for the longest time, I believed loyalty meant sacrifice, even when it broke me from the inside out. I grew up in a house where love was measured by what you gave, not what you received. My parents had always leaned on me, emotionally, financially, every way possible. When I got my first full-time job, I started paying their bills. Not out of obligation, but out of a desperate need to keep peace. I thought it was love. I thought it was normal. But love doesn't come with an expiration date. Or so I thought. Last week, I sat them down, my voice trembling, heart pounding in my chest like a trapped bird, and told them I couldn't keep paying their bills anymore. It wasn't just the money. It was the feeling that I was drowning, losing pieces of myself with every dollar sent and every apology absorbed. I needed to live for me, to build my own future. Instead of understanding, I got accusations. Ungrateful. Selfish. How could you abandon your family? They said it all, right there in front of the others, friends, relatives, neighbors. Their voices were sharp knives, cutting deeper than I expected. I wanted to scream, to tell them how alone I felt, how much I had given until there was nothing left, but I stayed silent. The room spun, the air thick with shame and disbelief. I couldn't believe the people who raised me, the people I trusted most, could turn on me so fast. That night, I lay awake, tangled in memories I wasn't ready to face. The late nights working overtime to cover their debts. The hidden tears when my own rent was overdue. The phone calls I answered at 2 a.m., pretending everything was fine. And beneath it all, a quiet, gnawing question that kept me from peace. Was I really ungrateful? Or was this the moment I finally found the courage to say enough? But as I drifted into a restless sleep, a strange feeling lingered, like a shadow just out of sight. Something about my parents' reaction didn't sit right. Why had they snapped so quickly? Why did their anger feel rehearsed, almost mechanical? I didn't know it then, but that night marked the beginning of uncovering secrets buried deep in our family. Secrets that might explain the harsh words, the hidden debts, and the real reasons I was paying for everything. For now, all I knew was the ache of betrayal and the desperate hope that, somehow, I could find myself again. The days after that night felt unreal, like I was walking through fog. Every text from my parents was colder, sharper, a reminder of the rift I never wanted to create but couldn't ignore anymore. At work, I kept replaying the scene in my mind. Their faces, not the usual tired but loving expressions I was used to, but something else. Something I couldn't name yet. It made me question everything. Had I really been the selfish one, or was there something deeper tearing us apart? Then I found it. A stack of unopened mail, hidden behind the old curtains in the living room. Bills, overdue notices, and something else that didn't belong there. An envelope addressed to my mother, with no return address. My heart raced as I unfolded the yellowed paper inside. It was a letter, dated nearly 2 years ago. The words were cryptic, mentioning a deal gone wrong, urgent repayment, and a warning to keep quiet for everyone's sake. I tried to ask my mother about it, but she shut down the conversation fast, eyes darting away like she was scared I'd see something I wasn't supposed to. My father, too, avoided my questions, their smiles forced and brittle. I realized then that the financial burden I'd been carrying was only the tip of the iceberg. That night, sleep eluded me. My mind swirled with doubt and fear. What had they been hiding? And why was I the one left to pay the price? The next day, at work, I overheard a whispered conversation between two colleagues who had recently met my parents at a community event. They mentioned something about a failed business venture and debts bigger than anyone knew. It clicked. Maybe the anger, the accusations of ungratefulness, were a cover for something else. For shame, for fear, for secrets no one wanted to face. But what scared me most was the growing feeling that the family I thought I knew was built on lies. And that the more I dug, the more I risked losing everything, not just money, but love, trust, and maybe even my own identity. As I stared out my apartment window that evening, the city lights blurred by unshed tears, I made a quiet vow. I would uncover the truth, no matter how painful. Because healing can't start without facing the shadows. The letter haunted me like a whisper I couldn't silence. Deal gone wrong, urgent repayment, keep quiet. Those words echoed in my mind as if they were a warning or a threat. I knew I couldn't just confront my parents again without something concrete. But where to start? I felt like an outsider in my own home, trapped between their silence and my own. Swelling doubts. One evening, after work, I decided to visit the small town where my parents had grown up, a place they rarely mentioned. Maybe there, I thought, I could find answers. Maybe the roots of this mystery were buried in those dusty streets and forgotten faces. Driving into town, memories of my childhood flooded me. The old bakery where my mother worked as a girl, the park where my father played baseball. Everything looked the same, yet I felt like a stranger. At the local library, I sifted through newspaper archives, hoping for a clue. That's when I found it. An article from 5 years ago about a business scandal involving a local construction company. My parents' names were mentioned, but only briefly. The scandal had ruined families, forced bankruptcies, and disappeared into whispers. My heart pounded. Had my parents been involved? Were those debts connected to the scandal? Why had they never told me? I tried to speak with some old neighbors, but their answers were cautious, vague, almost as if they were protecting a secret. One elderly woman, Mrs. Jennings, finally pulled me aside and said, "Sometimes, dear, the truth isn't meant to come out. It can destroy everything you love." Her words chilled me. Was I risking more than I realized by digging deeper? That night, back in my apartment, I stared at the letter again. The shadows on my walls seemed to grow longer, twisting into shapes I couldn't name. The ache inside me was no longer just about money or betrayal. It was about trust, the fragile kind that shatters silently. As I lay awake, I realized the hardest part wasn't the secrets themselves. It was the fear that once they came to light, nothing would ever be the same again. And maybe, I wasn't sure if I wanted it to be. Returning home after that visit to my parents' hometown felt like stepping into a different world, one I didn't recognize anymore. The past was no longer distant. It was alive, pulsating beneath the surface, waiting to crack open. That evening, I tried to talk to my mother again. I needed answers, anything to explain the silence, the bitterness, the debts. But as soon as I mentioned the town and the scandal, her eyes hardened. "Emily, some things are better left buried," she said quietly, but with steel in her voice. "You don't understand what you're getting yourself into." I wanted to argue, to tell her I deserved the truth. But instead, the weight of her words crushed the fight out of me. For the first time, I saw fear in her, not just anger. Days passed in a fog of uncertainty. My father was distant, barely meeting my gaze. My parents no longer hid their resentment. It seeped into every conversation, every glance, every silence. One night, unable to hold the pressure any longer, I found myself scrolling through old family photos. Among the smiling faces was a picture of a man I didn't recognize, standing awkwardly beside my parents. The date scrawled on the back was from the same year as the scandal. Curiosity gnawed at me. Who was he? What role did he play in this story? The next morning, I took a risk and showed the photo to my father. His face paled, fingers trembling as he traced the outline of the stranger's face. "That's Michael," he whispered. "He was my business partner." Suddenly, the pieces started to fall into place. Michael, the scandal, the debts. But why had my parents never spoken of him? And why had they allowed me to shoulder the burden alone? "I need to know everything," I said, voice steady despite the storm inside me. My father sighed, a deep, broken sound that felt like it carried years of regret. "Michael betrayed us. Took everything. And when the debts came crashing down, we had no choice. We lost more than just money that year, Emily. We lost trust, family, everything." His words cracked the last of my illusions. The ungratefulness they accused me of? It was a mask, a desperate shield against shame and guilt. But as the truth spilled out, so did another fear. What if the fallout wasn't over? What if those shadows from the past were still watching, waiting? And what if the next betrayal was closer than I imagined? My father's confession should have brought relief, some kind of closure, but it only left me with more questions and a pit in my stomach that wouldn't go away. Michael. A name I had never heard growing up. A man erased from all stories and memories. My parents had scrubbed him from our past like a stain they couldn't bear to see. And yet, his ghost was everywhere. In the debts, in their shame, in the fear that lingered behind their eyes. The next morning, I searched online. It didn't take long. Michael Langford. A few dated articles about the fraud case, then silence. No current address. No social media. Nothing past 2019. Vanished. But something else caught my attention. A quiet forum post on a business watchlist site from 2 years ago, anonymous, warning investors not to work with a man, using different names, promising quick returns, preying on vulnerable families. The post ended with a cryptic line. He doesn't just steal money. He ruins lives. My stomach turned. Could he still be out there? Later that evening, as I walked into my apartment, I noticed something odd. The photo frame on my desk was tilted. Just slightly. Enough that it made my skin crawl. I always left it straight. Always. I checked the door. Locked. The windows? Nothing broken. Everything looked normal. But something had changed. A feeling. Like I wasn't alone. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I found an envelope slid under my front door. No return address. No handwriting. Just my name typed neatly across the center. I hesitated before opening it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No message. Just a blurry black and white photo. Of me. Leaving the library in my parents' hometown. I dropped it. My knees buckled. Someone was watching me. The realization came like ice down my spine. This wasn't just about my parents' debt or their past choices. Someone didn't want me digging any deeper. I wanted to run. To pretend none of this was real. But that same quiet fire inside me, the one that pushed me to say no more to paying their bills, to choosing my peace over their silence, told me I couldn't stop now. Because this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about my safety. And the truth, whatever it was, might be darker than I ever imagined. I stared at the photo for what felt like hours, though it was only minutes. The grainy image of myself, unaware, vulnerable, burned into my mind. Someone had followed me, watched me, knew where I'd been. Panic bloomed in my chest, fast and tight. My first instinct was to call the police. But what could I even say? Hi, someone left a blurry photo of me. No note, no threat. Just fear. I didn't call. Not yet. Instead, I picked up my phone and dialed the one person I thought I'd never speak to again. Aunt Rachel, my mother's estranged younger sister. We hadn't spoken in years, not since a fight at my grandfather's funeral that ended in slammed doors and words that couldn't be taken back. But something in my gut told me she knew more than anyone else, more than even my father had shared. She answered after the third ring. Emily. Her voice was wary. Is everything okay? No, I whispered. And I think you've known it hasn't been for a long time. There was silence. Then a sigh. I always wondered when you'd start asking questions. I met her at a diner on the edge of town. She looked older than I remembered, but sharper. Her eyes scanned me like she was trying to measure how deep I'd already fallen. She didn't waste time. Michael Langford wasn't just your father's business partner, she said, stirring her coffee. He was your mother's everything. Her first love, her mistake, and her biggest regret. I blinked. What? She met him before your father. They were reckless together, fast money, big dreams. He swept her off her feet. But it turned ugly. Real ugly. He had connections, not just business ones. Dangerous ones. When things went south, your parents tried to cover it up. Took out loans. Sold property. Did everything they could to keep you safe. Even if it meant destroying themselves. I couldn't breathe. So, why hide it from me? Why let me pay for everything all these years? Rachel looked away. Because they thought they could outrun it. Outrun him. But you digging into the past, it brought attention again. Michael's not the kind of man who stays gone forever. If he knows you're asking questions, I pulled the photo from my bag and slid it across the table. She went still, then whispered, "You need to stop. Now." "I can't," I said, voice shaking. "I'm already in too deep." She leaned in, her voice low. "Then you need protection. And there's one person left who might help you, but you'll have to go back to the beginning. To the first debt. The one they never repaid." I stared at her, confusion tightening around me like a rope. "What debt?" She glanced around nervously, then whispered two words that made the blood drain from my face. "Your name." Those two words echoed in my ears long after I left the diner. I had always believed my name, Emily Parker, was nothing more than that, a name. Mine. Something ordinary, something inherited. But as I sat on my bed later that night, holding the photo of myself someone had slipped under my door, the words, "the first debt," looped in my mind like a slow-moving storm. I opened my birth certificate. The name was there, clear, printed neatly at the top. Emily Jane Parker. Father, Daniel Parker. Mother, Elise Parker. Nothing out of the ordinary. But then I noticed something I hadn't paid attention to before. The signature. It wasn't my mother's handwriting. I knew that script by heart, from childhood permission slips, birthday cards, notes taped to my door when she left for work. This signature was blocky, uneven, like someone was trying to imitate her. A forgery? I scanned the rest of the document and saw it. A registration number tied to a birth registrar's office in a completely different county, not the one I'd always been told I was born in. My pulse spiked. I dug through old files, boxes, journals, anything I could find. At the bottom of an old file drawer, I found a manila folder labeled Emily Medical. Inside were vaccination records and checkups. But the earliest document, a hospital discharge form, had a different name written at the top. Emma J. Langford. Langford. Michael's last name. My throat closed. I stared at the paper until my vision blurred. Emma Langford? No. That couldn't be me. It didn't make sense. But the dates matched. The birth date. The hospital ID. The doctor's name. All of it. I was born Emma Langford. Michael Langford's daughter? I collapsed into the chair, shaking as reality twisted around me. Was the debt not just financial? Was it me? Had my mother tried to erase the past, to change my identity, to hide me from the man who had ruined their lives? Suddenly, the anger made sense. The desperation. The secrecy. They weren't just ashamed, they were afraid. Every dollar I'd paid, every lie they told, was part of a larger plan to keep the truth hidden. And now that I had started digging, Michael might know. The photo. The envelope. The quiet threat. I wasn't just a woman asking too many questions. I was the secret he lost. And now he might want me back. I couldn't stop staring at the name. Emma J. Langford. It didn't feel like me, and yet it was me. Every syllable pulsed with betrayal. I wasn't just carrying my parents' financial burden. I was the living, breathing embodiment of a past they buried. Or tried to. At dawn, with no sleep and a storm inside me I couldn't silence, I drove straight to my parents' house. I didn't knock. My mother was in the kitchen, her back to me, stirring tea like nothing had happened, like our lives weren't lies stitched together with silence and shame. I dropped the manila folder on the table. She didn't turn around, didn't even flinch. "You knew," I said, voice shaking. "You lied to me. My whole life." She spoke softly, but there was no warmth in her tone. I did what I had to do. That's not good enough anymore. Finally, she turned, her face pale, mouth tight. "What do you want me to say, Emily? That I was 19 and terrified? That I got involved with a man who controlled everything, my money, my body, my future? That when I got pregnant, he told me he'd take you away unless I ran?" Her voice cracked. "So I did. I ran to your father. We changed your name. We faked records. And we never looked back. You should have told me," I whispered. "You made me pay for everything, everything, while you hid the truth about who I am." "You weren't safe," she said, tears finally spilling. You still might not be. That photo, he's watching you, Emily. He always said he'd find us. He has people. I stepped back, dizzy.
Why now?
Why come for me now? She looked at me like I already knew. Because you said no. You stopped paying. You stepped out of the pattern. You exposed yourself. And then she added something that chilled me to my bones. You're not just a threat to him. You're an asset. And Michael doesn't lose things he thinks he owns. My skin crawled. I had always thought I was just a tired daughter, drained from giving too much. But now I understood. I was the product of a lie someone powerful wanted back. A man who destroyed everything he touched. I left without another word. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just shut down. Because now it wasn't just about uncovering the truth. It was about surviving it. And Michael Langford, my biological father, was no longer a ghost. He was watching. And I needed to know what he wanted before he decided to take it. I didn't go home. I drove for hours with no destination, just open road and a fractured identity rattling in the passenger seat. I wasn't Emily Parker anymore. I was Emma Langford. A name with weight. A name someone dangerous remembered. And worse, wanted. By sunset, I pulled into a faded motel just outside city limits. The kind of place no one asked questions, and every room smelled faintly of bleach and regret. I paid in cash. No ID. Just a name I barely believed was mine. I lay on the stiff mattress, staring at the ceiling fan spinning like a clock ticking too fast. Was I in danger? Or just afraid? I remembered the photo, the way it had been slipped beneath my door so quietly, so deliberately. Whoever did it knew where I lived, knew I was looking. That meant Michael wasn't just aware of me. He was close. I texted Aunt Rachel. Me. He knows who I am. And he knows I know too. Her reply came minutes later. Rachel. Then it's already started. I stared at the screen, my heart racing. Me, what's it? Rachel. Call me. I did. Her voice was hushed, like she was somewhere she shouldn't be. Michael always had people, she
said.
Investors, contacts, even law enforcement in his pocket. But after your mom disappeared with you, he pulled every string he had trying to track you down. Eventually, he gave up.
Or so we thought.
Why now? I asked again. Why wait all these years? Because you're grown now. Legal. Independent. You have value to him, Emily. Not just as a daughter, as a legacy. A pawn. A name to manipulate. My stomach turned. I don't want anything to do with him. Rachel's voice dropped lower. Then you need to disappear, at least until I can find out how far his reach still goes. Go somewhere safe. Off-grid. Burn everything that connects you to Emily Parker or Emma Langford. And whatever you do, don't trust anyone who comes looking for you.
I didn't sleep that night.
I stared at my phone until dawn, then powered it off. My hands were trembling as I shredded old documents, bank statements, leases, bills. Anything that tethered me to who I was. Then I opened my laptop one last time and searched for Michael Langford. No recent photos. No verified accounts. But one hit caught my eye, a blurry security image from an airport surveillance camera in Lisbon, time-stamped just a few weeks ago. The photo was grainy, but the man was unmistakable. Same sharp jawline. Same cold stare. He looked older. Grayer. But alive. And heading east. Toward me. By sunrise, I had packed what little I could carry into a second-hand duffel bag. No labels, no identifiers. I left my apartment keys on the kitchen counter. Everything I had built, sacrificed for, paid for, left behind like a ghost that no longer belonged to me. I wasn't running. I was erasing myself. Aunt Rachel had wired me some cash through a burner account she'd kept for emergencies. Don't use banks, she warned. Not even ATMs. You have no idea what his reach is. So, I took a bus, not a flight. No ID. No questions. My destination? A remote cabin that belonged to Rachel's friend, a woman named Delilah, deep in the Adirondacks, hidden in trees older than memory. Delilah owed Rachel a favor from long ago. That was all I knew. That, and she wasn't the type to ask questions. It was dusk by the time I arrived. The cabin was rustic but warm, the kind of place you could disappear in and never be found unless someone was very, very determined. Delilah was kind, quiet. She looked at me with the kind of knowing eyes that said she'd been running once too. Maybe still was. She gave me space.
Food.
Silence. I stayed inside the first night, heart thrumming to the rhythm of every creak in the floor, every gust of wind tapping at the window. Sleep didn't come easily, but it did come. Until I heard it. The soft knock. 3 gentle taps at the front door. My chest tightened. I checked the time. 2:43 a.m. No one should have known I was here. I crept toward the window and peeked through the curtain. A man stood on the porch, silhouetted in the moonlight.
Tall. Still.
Holding something. Then he spoke. Emma, it's me. I'm not here to hurt you. I froze. No one here knew that name. Not even Delilah. I hadn't said it aloud since I found that hospital form. His voice was familiar, not like a memory, but like something you inherit. Like a scent you can't place but somehow know. Then he stepped into the light. He looked like me. Older. Weathered. But unmistakably connected. My name is Adam, he said. I'm your brother. The air vanished from my lungs. I don't have a brother, I whispered, trembling. Yes, you do, he said, his voice shaking with something like grief. And if Michael finds either of us, we're both dead. For a long time, I didn't move. I just stared at him through the glass, this stranger claiming to be my brother, calling me by a name that only lived in silence and shadows. Adam. He looked exhausted, haunted, and too much like me to ignore. Delilah stepped behind me quietly, a rifle in her hand. Her eyes, cool and unreadable, met mine. Do you want me to send him away? I hesitated. My heart screamed yes, but the ache in my chest whispered wait. No, I said, my voice trembling. Let me talk to him.
We let him in.
Slowly.
Carefully.
Delilah stayed close, the rifle never lowering. I was glad. Adam stood just inside the cabin, dripping rain and tension onto the hardwood floor. I know how this sounds, he began, but I'm not here to hurt you. I've been trying to find you for months. Rachel told me where you were. She said you deserved the truth. Rachel never told me I had a brother, I said, arms crossed tightly. So either you're lying or she's been hiding even more than I thought. He nodded like he expected that. She didn't know at first. No one did. I'm not your full brother, Emma. I'm Michael's son. From another woman. My stomach turned. I didn't grow up with him, Adam continued. I only met him when I was 15. My mom kept him away, tried to protect me. But he found us. Promised a better life. Promised family. He paused, jaw tightening. It wasn't family. It was control. Fear. He groomed me to become part of his empire. I didn't know what I was in until it was too late. And now you're just what? Saving me? I asked, my voice a mix of disbelief and desperation. I'm trying, he said softly, because I know what he's capable of. And you're the one that got away. You're the only person who can ruin him, Emma. And he knows it.
How?
Adam pulled a folded piece of paper from his coat pocket and handed it to me. I opened it with shaking fingers. It was a copy of an old bank document. The account was in my name, but the numbers didn't make sense. Too many zeros. Then I saw the signature. Michael Langford. What is this? I whispered. He funneled money through an account created in your name when you were just a baby.
Offshore.
Dirty money. It's why your mom ran. It's the debt they were paying, the interest on the silence. He's still using the account. And if the wrong people trace it, it won't just be him who goes down. Suddenly, everything made sense. The bills. The fear. The silence. I wasn't just a secret. I was a shield. A scapegoat. Adam's voice softened. You're the loose end, Emma. And he's coming to tie it. I felt the tears burning, but I wouldn't let them fall. Not yet. Why are you really helping me? I asked. Why now? He looked me dead in the eyes. Because I didn't save my mother in time. And I won't make that mistake twice. I didn't sleep that night. Adam sat across from me at the small wooden table in Delilah's kitchen, a cup of untouched tea growing cold in his hands. Every so often, his eyes drifted to the window, like he expected headlights to appear in the darkness at any moment. I didn't know whether to trust him. I didn't know if I trusted anyone anymore, not my parents, not Rachel, not even myself. But one thing was clear. Michael Langford had used my name. He had made me the legal owner of an offshore account tied to decades of illegal money, bribes, laundered funds, and something Adam only referred to as family debts. And, if it ever came to light, I'd be the one they'd blame. You have two choices, Adam finally said, his voice low. Erase everything and run or use it. Use what's in your name to destroy him.
How?
I whispered. He pulled out a flash drive. These are copies of the account transfers. If you hand this to the right people, federal investigators, Interpol, even private journalists, you could bring his entire empire down. And put myself in prison? He shook his head. Not if you do it the right way. Not if you go in as the daughter he manipulated, not the accomplice. But you'll have to be smart. You'll have to control the story before he controls it for you. The cabin felt smaller with every passing hour. The walls seemed to listen. The trees outside pressed closer. My chest tightened every time a twig snapped outside. I stood, pacing. He'll know if I do this. He'll know I'm coming for him. Adam stood too. He already knows. But here's the thing, Emma. Stop calling me that, I snapped. That's not who I am. He looked at me then, truly looked at me. It is who you are. But you don't have to let it define you. You can be Emma and Emily. You can be both. Or you can be someone else entirely. Just don't let him write your ending. I swallowed hard, the weight of that truth settling into my bones. Maybe I didn't know who I was yet, but I knew who I wasn't. I wasn't Michael Langford's pawn. I wasn't a girl begging for love from parents who kept secrets instead of offering truth. I wasn't going to keep running. Not anymore. Delilah came into the room quietly. If you're going to fight him, she said, you need to do it soon. Word travels fast in his circles. He'll know you've connected with Adam. I looked between them. And then I made the decision that changed everything. I want to expose him. Not just for what he did to me, but what he did to my mom. To my dad. To you, Adam. And probably to so many others. Adam handed me the flash drive. Then we go to someone who can't be bought. Delilah nodded. I know just the person. As we made preparations, I felt something shift in me. A quiet resolve. A fire long buried beneath guilt and silence and exhaustion. This was my name. My story. And I was finally ready to speak it. We left the cabin at dawn. The sky was still gray, heavy with the weight of a storm that hadn't broken yet. I sat in the passenger seat of Adam's beat-up truck. The flash drive zipped into the inside pocket of my jacket. Not just a piece of plastic, but the wreckage of a man's empire and the truth of my own identity. Delilah had given us a name. Lena Ward, an investigative journalist in D.C. with a reputation for burning bridges and exposing monsters. Delilah said she did no favors. She collected stories like weapons, and she only used them when it mattered. She's the kind of woman Michael can't buy, Delilah had told us. She'll listen if you show her something real. It took most of the day to reach the outskirts of the city. I barely spoke the entire drive. I kept looking out the window, half expecting a black SUV to appear behind us, tailing silently like Michael's ghost. By evening, we pulled into a quiet Georgetown neighborhood and parked near a brownstone Lena supposedly used as a private office. Adam walked beside me as I knocked on the door, my pulse thudding in my ears. No answer. I knocked again, louder. Still nothing. I turned to Adam. You said she knew we were coming. He nodded, checking his phone. Delilah confirmed it an hour ago. That's when I noticed it. The door wasn't fully latched. Adam's eyes met mine, and without speaking, we both stepped inside. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I called out, "Hello, Lena?" No answer. We found her in the back study, slumped in a chair, breathing but unconscious. A glass of wine lay shattered at her feet, and her laptop had been wiped clean, the screen blinking with a BIOS error. Adam rushed to check her pulse. She was alive, barely. She's been drugged, he said. But she'll make it. I backed away slowly, my heart hammering. Someone got here before us. Adam looked around the room. The place wasn't trashed, it was surgically invaded. Someone came for one thing: the files, the evidence, the silence. We heard a buzz from Lena's phone on the desk. A text from an unknown number. Just 5 chilling words. She talks. She dies next. I swallowed hard.
My throat was dry.
Adam handed me the phone with shaking hands. This wasn't a warning, he said. It was a message to you. I couldn't breathe. My world spun sideways. We weren't just uncovering secrets anymore. We were pulling at a thread someone would kill to keep buried. Michael wasn't just watching.
He was cleaning up.
And I was still on the list, so we didn't wait for the ambulance. Adam scooped Lena into his arms as if she weighed nothing, and we got her to a hospital on the outskirts of the city without giving our names. I stayed in the car while he signed her in under a false identity. We didn't need the hospital calling the police, or worse, alerting anyone watching for our movements. When he came back, the sun was setting. A bruised orange sky hung low above us, thick with humidity and dread. She'll live, Adam said, sliding into the driver's seat. They're running talk screens now. But she was lucky we found her when we did. I stared out the window. My reflection looked older than I remembered, like grief and fear had carved something hollow behind my eyes. This is my fault, I whispered. No, he said. This is his. I didn't answer, but in my chest, something was shifting. Not fear. Not guilt.
Rage.
A heat that crackled through my veins like lightning behind a storm cloud. Lena had almost died for my story, because of my name. We drove for hours in silence. Adam didn't ask where we were going until I finally told him, I want to see Rachel. You think she knows what to do next? No, I said. But she owes me answers. And I need to know how deep this goes. We reached Rachel's apartment by midnight. She opened the door in a robe, her hair pulled back, but her eyes were alert, like she hadn't slept in weeks. She let us in without a word. I dropped the flash drive on her kitchen table. They came for the journalist, wiped her system, drugged her, almost killed her. Rachel's face paled. She sank into a chair. He's accelerating.
Why?
I demanded.
Why now?
Why not 10 years ago? 20? What changed? She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, You. What? You changed. She looked up at me, something between sorrow and pride flickering in her eyes. You stopped being obedient. You started asking questions. And more importantly, you started mattering. You have no idea how much Michael's enemies want him gone. If you expose him, they win. You're a symbol now, Emily. Or Emma. Whatever you choose to be. But symbols don't get to live quiet lives. They make noise, or they disappear. I felt the weight of it settle into my bones. I'm not a symbol, I said softly. Then be a storm, Rachel whispered. Because if you don't strike first, he will. I turned to Adam. I'm not running anymore. We get this story out. Somewhere safe. Somewhere fast. But not to one person. We send it everywhere. Adam's eyes met mine. You sure? No, I said, finally letting the tears fall. But if I stay silent, people will keep getting hurt.
Lena. My mom. You. Me.
I won't be another scared girl in the dark. Rachel opened a drawer and pulled out an old burner laptop. Then let's light the match. We stayed up all night, uploading files, encrypting messages, sending copies to journalists, whistleblower networks, safe cloud drives in countries we'd never been to. By morning, it was done. The storm had been unleashed. And if Michael Langford wanted a war, he just got one. For a few days, the world held its breath. The files, the secrets, the truth, they spread like wildfire through shadowed corners of the internet. Investigators, journalists, watchdogs all lit up with activity. But in the quiet between the chaos, I felt a growing weight, a cold shadow pressing against my chest. Then the call came. My phone rang just past midnight. No caller ID. I hesitated, then answered. Emma. The voice was low, smooth, controlled. Or should I say, Emily, you've been very busy. Michael Langford. The name sent ice through my veins, but my voice was steady. You don't scare me. A slow chuckle. You should be afraid. You have no idea what's coming. You think sending files and secrets to faceless strangers will protect you? You've lit a fuse in a powder keg. I gritted my teeth. Maybe. But I'm done hiding. Done paying debts I never owed. There was a pause. Then, cold and sharp as a knife, he said, You think you're strong? You're alone. And soon, everyone you care about will pay for your foolishness. The line went dead. I stared at my phone. Alone?
No.
Not anymore. Adam was already awake, waiting with a plan. Rachel had arranged for safe houses and trusted allies. Delilah was tracking every move, ready to vanish at a moment's notice. I wasn't a scared girl anymore. I was the storm. And whatever came next, Michael Langford had just awakened a force he couldn't control. The days following Michael's call were a whirlwind. Meetings in dimly lit cafes, encrypted calls with distant allies, and constant vigilance. I felt like I was living in a cage of glass, every sound outside a threat, every shadow a possible enemy. But nothing prepared me for the knife in my back. It started small, misplaced files, strange glitches on my devices, whispered rumors from people I thought I could trust. Then one evening, as Adam and I reviewed the latest leak strategy, my phone buzzed with a message from Rachel. We need to talk.
Now.
Urgent. I met her at a quiet park bench under the flicker of an old street lamp. Her face was pale, her hands trembling. There's a leak, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Someone close to us, someone with access to our plans, has been feeding Michael information. I felt the air leave my lungs.
Who?
I demanded. Rachel hesitated. I don't know for sure, but the way some of the moves have been anticipated and how certain safe houses were compromised, it can only be someone who knows everything. My mind raced. There was only one person, Delilah, the woman who hid me, who gave me shelter and weapons and silence. The woman who knew all my secrets. That night, I confronted Delilah. Her eyes were cold, hard. I'm not who you think I am. I trusted you, I said, voice breaking. I was paid, she confessed. Long before you showed up. Michael doesn't just have money. He has people everywhere. I was his insurance policy. The betrayal stung worse than any threat. I wanted to scream, to run, to give up. But instead, I did something unexpected. I thanked her. Why? Adam asked, bewildered. Because now I know the truth, I said, voice steady. And now we fight smarter. Because the enemy isn't just out there, he's inside our walls. The weight of betrayal hung heavy between us, but it also sharpened our focus. Delilah's confession was a wound, but it was also a warning. Michael Langford's reach was deeper than we imagined, and to win, we had to outsmart him. In a dimly lit basement, lit only by a single hanging bulb, Adam and I spread out everything we had: maps, files, timelines, digital footprints. Each piece a thread in the tangled web Michael had spun around us. We have to make him think he's winning, Adam said, eyes dark but resolute. Feed him false moves. Lure him into the open. I nodded, feeling a cold fire ignite in my chest. We'll use the offshore account documents as bait. Make it look like we're about to hand everything over to the authorities. Adam smirked grimly. He won't resist. We crafted a carefully worded leak, anonymous but irresistible, hinting at a full expose ready to drop at any moment. Then we made sure it found its way to Michael's known associates, disguised through secure channels only someone close to his network could access. Days passed with the silence of a coming storm. Then the phone rang. No caller ID. I answered, voice steady but heart pounding. Congratulations, Emma. Michael's voice purred. You've been a thorn in my side for too long. But your little games won't save you. Games? I challenged. Everything is a game. And soon, I'll be the one controlling the board. I hung up, the line cutting cold. Adam looked at me. He took the bait. I swallowed hard. Now we wait. But waiting felt like a noose tightening. Every shadow lengthened. Every silence screamed. The trap was set, but who would fall into it first? Michael? Us?
Or both.
One thing was certain. This war wasn't just about secrets anymore. It was about survival. The night the trap sprung, silence was our enemy. Every sound was amplified. The creak of a floorboard. The soft hum of a car outside. The flutter of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Adam sat beside me. I shrugged. Every muscle tense. We waited. Minutes passed like hours. Then, a message. Encrypted. Short. Packet received. Initiate phase 2. My breath hitched. Michael had taken the bait. But what was phase 2? Before I could ask, the power flickered and died. Total blackout. My skin prickled. The darkness felt alive, pressing in from every corner. We scrambled for flashlights, our breaths ragged in the heavy silence. Then the phone buzzed again, this time with a video. The screen lit up to show Lena, weak, bruised, her voice barely a whisper. Emily helped me. I felt my world shatter. We weren't just fighting Michael anymore. We were racing against time to save those we loved. And the walls were closing in. The night I found Lena, something inside me cracked wide open. The fear, the anger, the years of silence and pain. We raced against the clock, tracking her through the faint signals left behind, Adam and I fighting with every ounce of strength we had. The rescue wasn't clean. It was a chaotic blur of whispered threats, gunfire, and shadows crawling too close. But we got her out, bruised, broken, but alive. Lena's survival wasn't just a victory. It was a beacon. The leaks we released had sparked investigations far beyond what Michael expected. His empire started crumbling piece by piece. His allies turned on him. His name, once whispered with fear, now echoed with contempt. And me? I was no longer just Emily Parker or Emma Langford. I was the woman who refused to be silenced. The daughter who reclaimed her name, not as a debt, but as a declaration. Sitting in the quiet aftermath, I looked at the scars left behind. On my heart, on my family, on my soul. And I realized healing wasn't about forgetting. It was about facing the past and choosing to move forward anyway. Michael Langford was gone. Or at least his power was. But I was still here. Stronger, wiser, and free. The road ahead was unknown, but for the first time in my life, it was mine to walk.